Okay, so welcome to this afternoon's meeting of the Adults and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So the first item on the agenda is the appointment of the chairman. Can I confirm that Mr. Richardson is nominated as the chairman as at the County Council meeting held on the 16th of May? Can anyone second that?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Mr. Richardson for the chairman's post.
Okay, thank you. So welcome Mr. Richardson to the chair.
Right, thank you very much. As I say, if I could just welcome everyone to today's meeting of the Adults and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee. If I can particularly ask all members today, I know we have some of the members of the public today who are have struggled with hearing problems, and I believe our loop isn't working as effectively as it should do. So can I ask anyone who does speak to do so clearly and perhaps with a raised voice to make sure all members of the public can clearly hear what's being said, because it is important that not only are we seen to do things properly, we can be heard properly. I would like to remind everybody present that this meeting will be broadcast live via the internet on the website. And again, can everybody please switch on and off their microphones when speaking to make sure we don't talk over each other. I've received apologies from Dr. Bremner, and I know that Mr. Gillard is substituting for him. And we have apologies from Mrs. Broadley, and Mr. Kaufman is acting as her substitute. So welcome to both of you today. Agenda item 2 is the election of the Deputy Chairman. Can I please have a nomination for Deputy Chairman, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to nominate Mr. Licorice as Deputy Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All in favour? Thank you. We have agenda item 3, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of March 2018. Can I take them as read, confirm and sign them at the appropriate time?
Agreed.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 4 is question time. We've received 2 questions from Ruth Mays, MBE, and Kay Lewis concerning Care Online, and 1 question from Tony Robinson in relation to the reconfiguration of the care facilities, especially the trees. We have specific items on both of those under 10 and 11, so I propose to actually take those questions under each agenda item if committee members are happy with that. All right, thank you. Agenda item 5, I've got no questions from members. Agenda item 6, has anyone got anything that they wish to take as urgent that's not on the agenda? I've not been notified of anything. Right, thank you. Agenda item 7, do I have any declarations of interest in respect of any items on the agenda that people haven't previously declared an interest in? I think I'll take the silence to mean no. Agenda item 8, declarations of the party whip. I believe we have no declarations from party whips. Again, agenda item 9, presentation of petitions under Standing Order 36. We have received 3 petitions have been received, 2 relating to Care Online and 1 around the proposal to close the trees at Hinckley as part of the reconfiguration paper. Again, the reports on these matters are agenda items 10 and 11, so we'll take both of those and consider both of those at that point, if members are happy. Right, thank you. I said we now reach agenda item 10, which is pages 11 to 56 in your papers, which is the reconfiguration of in-house learning disability residential accommodation. As I've said earlier, we have a petition and questions from Mr. Robinson, who I know is here today, and written representations from relatives of residents at the trees, which have been circulated to all members on the buff-coloured papers, which you've all had. But before we take the questions, I would ask Heather Pick, Assistant Director, to introduce the report.
Thank you. On the 6th of March, the Adults and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee received a report from the Director of Adults and Communities concerning proposals to close Hamilton Court Residential Home and Smith's Crescent Short Breaks Service in Colville, and the reconfiguration of the Trees Residential Care Home into a short breaks facility. Agreement for consultation on the proposed changes was given, and consultation took place from the 19th of February to the 15th of April. Consultation summary and feedback in detail has been enclosed in the report. Meetings were held with relatives and staff. A series of consultation workshops were held. There was an online questionnaire and a series of one-to-one meetings with the lead member and Director of Adults and Communities were arranged for relatives and staff as part of the consultation. I won't go through the whole of the feedback, but just to say the feedback strongly opposed the proposals to close long-term residential provision at the Trees and was concerned about the lack of provision of short breaks in Colville. As a result of the consultation feedback, officers of the council revised proposals and put forward new options and recommendations that have been put forward here today that will go to Cabinet. The recommendations that we've put forward as a result of the consultation is long-stay residential services at the Trees in Hinckley to continue to be provided, subject to reconfiguration and refurbishment that's desperately needed for the existing buildings. Long-stay residential services at Hamilton Court in Colville be closed and the residents be supported to find appropriate alternative accommodation. And a new short break service be developed on the Hamilton Court Smith's Crescent site to replace the existing short breaks building. The reasons for those revised recommendations were broadly the existing accommodation at the Trees is not considered to be satisfactory for continued provision of long stay accommodation, but a feasibility study confirms that the property can be reconfigured and refurbished to modern standards. The buildings at Hamilton Court and Smith's Crescent, adjacent to each other in Colville, have also become unsuitable, with particular issues for people with physical or sensory disabilities. Again, a feasibility study has confirmed that to reconfigure these buildings is not possible, but given the continued need for short break services and the opportunity for funding, the development of a new service on the site is recommended. The original proposals to reconfigure the services in Hinckley were planned to compensate for a reduction in short breaks in Colville. The revised proposals to retain long-stay accommodation in Hinckley would leave a shortfall in short break beds, hence the proposals for the Hamilton Smith's Court Crescent site to be accommodating a short breaks facility in Colville. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Heather. Can I now invite Mr. Robinson to come to the table? Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Just before you start, I'll just remind members that you've seen the questions that were submitted by Mr. Robinson and you've seen the response that has been given back to Mr. Robinson. I trust, Mr. Robinson, you've had a chance to see and read those
Yes, I have,
answers.
thank you. Yes.
Brilliant. If I can now invite you to actually ask any follow-up questions or to just make any general point, and you will have 3 minutes to do so.
Okay. In reference to the questions, we've had difficulties for 6 months in getting answers to questions, but luckily we've moved on. So can I just say a few words, general, please?
No, please do.
Won't be long. Firstly, we hope that everyone who needs respite care, which was the big issue, is getting it, especially with the holiday season approaching. It's important. The news of a new proposal for the Trees is such a relief for everyone involved, although we have lost some dedicated, important staff during this consultation. Hopefully we can sort of win them back and get them back working with these adults. It's been 6 months of heartache, uncertainty that makes me wonder as to why the initial proposal was suggested and allowed to go to consultation. Now is the time for someone at Leicester County Council to agree with me and thousands of us that the initial proposal was so wrong. Now we need to proceed with the news of the new proposal and go forward together. And we would like to, especially myself, thank everyone for reading all of our mail from myself and from many others, and all the support from other sources into getting through this difficult proposal and hopefully coming out with the right outcome. So thank you very much, everybody.
Right, thank you for that, Mr. Robinson. Before I open it up to members, does either the director or the portfolio holder wish to comment?
I'd like to thank Mr. Robinson for all his work. There's no doubt that he's made himself very well known at the County Hall, and that is what you need to do if you wish to get a response. He knows, because he's met me, that I said I would meet everybody and talk to everybody and get a feel for what was happening. I think the real question that he's asking, which I think that I would like to try and answer, is why did we do it? And the reason why it isn't so wrong is because if somebody needing the same services as your relative does now came to us now, they would go to the independent sector, because that's where people have been going and been looked after very well for quite a few years. Not because it's a worse service or a better service, it's just another service. So the question was that we as a council, to make savings, were trying to no longer be running in-house services. So the majority of people who receive care in residential care here, in vast majority, do it in places other than with Leicester County Council over the door. We didn't know until we asked the question how much loyalty there was towards Leicestershire County Council and what we provided. It might have been that the families turned around and said, as some have done, well, we're quite pleased actually to consider going somewhere else. Maybe we could go to a home that's nearer to where we live, for instance. So, but we didn't know that. And the trouble is that we can't just informally mention it quietly while we're having a word with you in the home. We have to do a formal consultation. So what we've done is that we've met with an overwhelming response of people who are desperately pleased with the service that we have and want to keep it. And we've changed the recommendation. And anybody who says that consultation is a waste of time should talk to you, Mr. Robinson, because we said from day one it was genuine consultation. And we haven't solved all the problems here, and there will be some changes. But this is massively changed. So I again thank you for what you've done. I won't say that we shouldn't have done it. I'm pleased I'm very, very pleased with the outcome, and thank you for all your work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Mr. Blunt. And I've just been reminded to actually mention that we have received the petition which has been put together. It is here, it is held by the council. So thank you for putting that together. And I said it has been received, read and noted. So I'd just like to bring that. Could I now open up the debate to other members? And I think Mrs. Newton wants to go first.
Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to say that many years ago I did visit the trees when we were closing down the daycare centre. You probably remember that. And I was quite impressed by the organisation of the facilities there by the County Council. But what I wanted to say was it's very, very difficult for people moving home. There's the impact of moving home is not an easy thing. So whatever we do, we've got to ensure that we pay due regard to the residents' health, etc. What I wanted to say also that I'm not quite sure I really agree with Richard's assessment of the private sector, because there is evidence to show that private sector care homes, at least 16% of these are showing signs of that they are at risk of failure. So it isn't a glowing picture painted out there of private care homes. I do think we here at the county have run exceptionally well our care homes, and I'm sad to see that that we are not moving away from that. And I just think that we need to ensure that we look after the well-being of our residents. But I am pleased about the short breaks for carers, because they really do need respite care for the work that they do, and it's important for the quality of life. So that side of it is extremely important for carers. So on the one hand, I'm sad to see what has happened, and I don't particularly agree that we should be moving everything to the private sector. On the other side, I do like the idea of better respite care for carers. Thank you.
Are there any points you want to pick up there, Heather?
Just to pick up on your point about the independent sector, and yes, you're correct. There is a percentage of care homes across all of the sector, older persons, learning disabilities, mental health, that are under scrutiny from CQC. We are fortunate in Leicestershire that we have a good relationship with our CQC, but in-house services are no less under inspection or regulation than independent sector. So we believe that working together, in-house CQC and our independent providers as a whole service, that we can be sure in Leicestershire that where independent sector providers are failing under the Care Act, we have a duty to support them, and none of us want to see a failing home. We want to support that. We have a team in the council who are dedicated to moving into those establishments and lending some expertise, management skills, moving and handling skills, etc. So we're confident that in Leicestershire we are fortunate. We do have those relationships. We can never say that all homes are excellent, but where we have early warning, we are able to intervene and do so on a regular basis.
Thank you, Heather. Mrs. Fryer.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the report, and also to Mr. Robinson and everybody that's taken such an interest in this, and quite rightly so. I would like to agree with what the lead member, Mr. Blunt, and the director have said. Also, we have to be careful that we're not just keeping homes and facilities open if they're not up to standard. Standards that were acceptable 15, 20, 30 years ago aren't now. I speak from experience, not in Leicestershire, but in another county south of here, where I had an elderly relative in care, and really it's not acceptable now that you're sharing bathrooms, that you don't have your own private facilities. And I think it is right that we should, if possible, keep our homes going, but we have got to bring them up to set. Not only for the people that are living there or they're on short stay, but also for the staff. It is not easy sometimes to work in these places, and I do notice that in the consultation there were comments from the staff. We have a duty of care to our residents, but we also have a very strong duty of care to the staff that work on their behalf and our behalf. So I welcome this report, and I welcome the recommendation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fryer. Mr. Crooks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm new to your committee and new to this particular type of agenda. I can't see, if we're scrutinising something, I can't see any costings for the private care. I mean, if we're going to use private care homes and shut our own for savings, surely there should be somewhere where it tells us how much we're going to save through doing it. Just moving on from that, I obviously welcome the fact that the trees is being recommended to be kept open and refurbished, so that is a bit of good news. I'm concerned, again, like one or two members have said, about private care compared to local authority care. And I've had some experience years ago with parents, and one was in private care and one was in a council-run home. And whilst the private one was very posh and very plush and cost us a fortune, the care in there was completely awful compared to what the other parent was having in a council one. So I'm not in favour of private care at all. I'd sooner see the council keep running theirs, but, you know, we've got in front of us what we have.
Heather, do you wish to respond?
Just wanted to pick up on your query and clarification on the costings. The proposals were never to be making savings on individual care costs. The costings that we have for the individuals are based on their individual needs and their support plans. We don't have a standard rate with any of the homes, in-house or independent providers. We do have what we term standard costs for hotel costs, which is your bed and board and food, but the actual support needs are based on what the individual needs and what those costs are. This proposal, wherever the individuals are, the county council still has a responsibility for funding and for making those negotiations. The proposals here, the savings were on the bricks and mortar, not staffing, or on the support costs of the individuals, which is why we couldn't put costings for savings on that element in here, because there wouldn't be any.
Do I have any further councillors wishing to speak? Before I make the recommendation, I'll just make the observation as well, following on from what's been said by others. For those that believe in a democracy, consultation doesn't matter. I think this has actually proved that it does. I think we're all here as county councillors because we care greatly about the residents in our county. And I think, whilst there may be some feelings that the exercise could have been done in a slightly different way, as Mr. Blunt has said, the exercise has to be done by law. We have no choice in it. And therefore, we accept that sometimes this can cause stresses and strains on the individuals because of the process we have to go through. But I hope it will be acknowledged that we have got to a result that actually, I think, provides the best of several worlds, not in everybody's eyes, I accept. So I'd like to move the recommendations under 2A to E, and I would make that proposal. Do I have a seconder for those recommendations? Thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Right, thank you. So those recommendations are going forward to Cabinet. And finally, could I thank Mr. Robinson for his time and his efforts once again and for turning up today. So thank you, Mr. Robinson. So I've got so many pieces of paper, I have to check which one. So we're now moving on to agenda item 11, which is the Care Online service. We have received 2 questions on this item and two petitions and some representations in support of the service. They were set out in a document circulated to all members, which is on the blue paper. I will invite Nigel Thomas, the Assistant Director, to introduce the report. After this, I will then invite Ian Retson to the table to present his petition, and then Ruth Mays and Kay Lewis to ask their supplementary questions from the ones that have already been provided. Again, members have had copies of the questions and copies of the responses. So could I pass over to you, please, Nigel?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. The purpose of this report is to update the committee on the consultation with regard to the proposal to decommission the Care Online service and to give an indicative position pending the final report that goes to Cabinet in July of this year. Care Online is a non-statutory service and part of the Communities and Wellbeing Service, which sits within this department, and it provides training, ICT equipment and telephone support to enable people to use IT to increase their independence. Approximately 350 people use the service, 48 currently receive a visit by a member of staff, and a further 35 people have been received additional support from 2016. In addition, there's a telephone support line, and in 2017 to 18, 234 service users contacted the support line, many on numerous occasions. The service is delivered by a small number of staff and costs around £100,000 in operating costs. The financial challenges facing the Communities and Wellbeing Service mean, like many other services such as libraries and museums, Care Online is not viable to continue in its present form. In addition, a number of other organisations exist, as outlined in Appendix A of your report, that offer support to people to enable them to become digitally active. It is acknowledged that the organisations that are listed in Appendix A are not the same as Care Online, and they will not exactly duplicate the service that offers. But the consultation suggests that the majority of service users are not aware of those organisations. Prior to last September's Cabinet report, a high-level options appraisal was undertaken and reported in that Cabinet report, and this is referenced in paragraphs 6 and 7. Consequently, it was agreed to develop proposals for consultation on the proposal to decommission the service. The details of how the consultation was undertaken are detailed in paragraphs 13 to 16 of your report. Emerging feedback is detailed in paragraphs 17 to 19. And at the close of the consultation on the 22nd of May, a total of 117 responses were received through varying available channels. In addition, a small number of individual responses was received, as well as the 2 petitions that have been referenced earlier on. It's understandable that the majority of responses have not been in favour of the proposals. The makeup of the responses do reflect the profile of service users that Care Online has helped. It is recognised that Care Online is and has been a valuable service carried out by a small group of committed and dedicated staff, and it's worth noting that the proposed recommendation to decommission the service is in no way a reflection of their hard work. However, we must take into consideration that there are a number of other organisations offering related services, and also most service users have been unaware of those offers. Most offer free access support across all user groups, and some do offer limited home visits. In addition, a third of service users do have an active support plan with social care and are eligible for social care services. A full Equalities and Human Rights Impact Assessment will be appended to the Cabinet report, and an Equalities Challenge group is scheduled this Friday that will look at the mitigating actions that will be undertaken should a decision be taken to decommission the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. Could I now invite, firstly, Ian Retson to the table? I think members will note that a paper was passed out just at the start of the meeting from Mr. Retson. But again, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Retson, to say what you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, the County Council have something unique and world-class in Care Online. It is the only service which provides a complete one-stop shop for the most vulnerable and isolated citizens. And I'm talking about people who are blind or deaf-blind, like Linda here and Ruth in the wheelchair. People who have advanced MS, dementia, stroke, mental health, learning disability, even end-of-life motor neurone disease. Care Online has served all of these adequately in the past. We have found that the alternative services proposed by the Council will not be able to provide anything like the level of support required by these Care Online users, and I would refer members to the paper circulated earlier. The need for digital engagement is greater than ever. Technology ceases to be optional. In Leicestershire, the number of people over 75 and those with a life-limiting illness will rise by some 40% by 2030. Since it began, Care Online has enabled over 3,000 people to experience the internet, and for many, this has been a life-changing experience. Some 2,000 people have received personal training programs. The team have installed assistive technology and even loaned recycled County Council laptops. Of the Care Online user base, about 35%, I seem to remember, are over 75, and about 3/4 were disabled, and most of them were known to social care services. The value of social interactions being proved to assist the independence, the mental health and the well-being of older and disabled people, and the long-term benefits of Care Online have been proven through in-depth evaluations. In 2012, 3/4 of the Care Online users said they would not have connected to the internet had it not been for Care Online. and the project had a positive impact on their day-to-day lives. They all said they would use the service again, as Nigel has referred to in some of the support call figures. Many of them come back year after year. The council are increasingly reliant on technology to connect with the population and encourages people to use it. Care Online is already helping the council to meet the requirements of legislation such as the Equalities Act 2010. Short-term savings, I believe, will be more than offset by the savings through giving greater independence and communication skills. The access to technology is taken for granted by younger people, but Care Online has proved many times that older people and severely disabled people benefit just as much if they're given the right support. Instead of decommissioning the service, the council should seize the opportunity to promote Care Online as a jewel in the crown. It has received 6 awards for innovation over the years at European, national and global levels. So this, ladies and gentlemen, I would propose is what success looks like. I've also seen, finally, it has been reported that the lead member for Adults and Communities has spoken to many of the families of the learning disabled people in the previous item on the agenda and plans to spend £1.4 million on short break accommodation. Can I suggest, please, that before making a decision, the lead member and some of yourselves would talk to some Care Online service users and see what their reactions are. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your time.
Sorry, thank you very much, Ian, for that. Could I now invite Ruth Mays, MBE, to come and address us? If you can just wait a second, or you need the mic on and it needs to be moved nearer to you.
It's on. You can speak.
Thank you.
Just please start when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak regarding Care Online. I've been a user for 15 years, and without them and the ever-changing technology, I just would not be able to cope with the ever-changing things that happen. Thank you for responding to my email, and I would like to ask a supplementary question. And I am having to hold all this in my head because I can't look at any notes or read them. But basically, you say that there will be a management transition if Care Online is no longer to be functioning as it is, and that there are other charities and so on that will provide a small amount of what Care Online do. And my question to you is, what actually how will you manage this transition to these other charities, and will they have the opportunity of speaking to people who work for Care Online, and so that they have a much wider understanding of all the different types of software that blind and deaf people actually use, because there are so many that Care Online can actually access and help us to use. So my question is, how will you manage this transition, and you know, how will it actually happen?
Thank you very much for that excellent question, and for certainly the way you've delivered it. I struggle to remember 2 things in my mind, so that was very well done, and Thank you very much. Perhaps before I come back, should I have the third speaker and then we can address all the issues at once? No? Let's do this first. I've been advised by my officers, and I always listen to the officers, that we come to you, Heather. Nigel, I'm cracking up.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Obviously, we are aware of the sensitive nature of this decision should it go ahead, and it is our intention to work with existing service users to fully understand what their requirements will be in a process of managing a transition to alternative organisations that can offer help and support. I think obviously that will need to be done on a case-by-case basis, and obviously we'll need to be conscious of those individual needs and find the best solution. I think we have to also make the point that we are living in very difficult times, and difficult decisions will have to be made, and we will have to look at how we manage services such as being delivered by Care Online and the offer that they have to service users in a different way. We've been very open in the fact that those alternative organisations who have agreed to be part of the consultation won't exactly replicate what that will be. However, we do have to make every effort to make sure that those transitions are available. Now, one of the things that we are considering is whether we have a small amount of transitional monies, that if there is any additional training, help and support that will enable those organisations to better be in a position to help current service users, we are looking at the options for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Do you have anything to add at this point, Richard? Okay. Right. Yes. I'll just do the next question first, Betty, and then we come to members at the end. Could I now invite Kay Lewis, I believe, on the way to the table, to come and make any comments and ask any supplementary questions. When you're ready, on the speaker mic in front, there's a button at the bottom. If you just press that, and it should go red. That's it, and whenever you're ready.
My question was, Care Online, I believe, is in the libraries section of funding with the County Council, and having the benefit of tremendous benefit from Care Online in 2014, and the continuing ongoing support, which has been absolutely invaluable. I am asking, I know the council has got to make cuts in their budget, but there's an increasing amount of elderly, vulnerable people in society, and they need help, and without a computer, they can't access that help. They're very often too proud to try and beg for help. They don't know where to get help from. They've got no computer. They're often made vulnerable, disabled, not over a period of time, but through accidents, car accidents, and their life is often changed dramatically. They're in an isolated, terrible environment, and they've no help. Now, the Care Online come in, they don't label people, unlike social services, and they listen to people and they help them. They make a tailor-made package which helps support them get back on track. Not maybe back into the community. They can contribute to the community. These ladies here have contributed tremendously. They've got awful disabilities that the majority of us would struggle to cope with, struggle to live with, but they've got on. Ruth has got an MBE. Linda has got a tremendous amount going on. She contributes to all manner of societies and puts back, even though she can't see and she can't hear. Care Online give her that support. Without that, her life would be absolutely awful. We need this help. It's not very much in the in the departments of social services, £100,000. What's £100,000? If it goes to social services, they're putting money into social services. They're introducing packages which don't meet the people's needs. This Care Online package is designed, is tailor-made. It's tailor-made for all manner of people. They breeze in with a big smile. They're at the end of the line for however many years they're available. They've been helping people for 17 years. They help people make an independent life. They help people commit to the community to help, and they increase people's standard of life. That's jolly good value for £100,000. Why can't the Care Online team be transferred to social services and expand, helping more and more people? Now, the answer to my question that you've given me, a lot of people, like myself, are too proud to ask for help for social services. We could hold our hand out, we could maybe claim for things, but we're too proud. We try and bumble on, we try and make the most of life. We have no help. I have no one in the world to help me. Without social services, I probably wouldn't be here. Not social care online, I wouldn't be here. Social services come in, they get a question and answer, tick a few questions, and they go out. They don't actually help people. They haven't got the facilities, they've got no resource. Unless you pay for help in the home, you don't get it. If you've got a certain amount of savings, you've got to pay for everything, irrespective of what a little pittance you have on benefits that you have to try and eke out and live on. So I think social care, Care Online, should remain. And I don't think, with the greatest respect, the people around this table know how difficult life can get. They don't meet the people that are getting the care from social Care Online. These people, the poor people, can't get here today. They're too poorly. They haven't got the ability. They've got no transport. They've got no money. They can't promote Care Online because they're too poorly. They're not on the social services network. And Care Online bridges the gap. They should be transferred to social services. They should be expanded.
Right, thank you very much for another moving presentation. Could I just ask you to press the button on the speaker off? Thank you. And I'll come to you, Nigel.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I think in terms of the response, the Adult Social Care Service, Care Online was part of the Adult Social Care Service a while ago, and then it was transferred into Communities and Wellbeing. And the Adult Social Care Service might not be in a position to support all Care Online service users, as they might not be eligible for council-funded services. However, as I've previously alluded to, approximately 1/3 of service users do have an active social care support plan, which under review, and those support plans are reviewed periodically. In terms of those people, then the sort of digital needs or any particular needs could be included in that support plan. For the people, as Kay has alluded to, that might be too proud to go to social care, there are other services and officers whose job it is to make contact with local people, particularly people in need, and to broker appropriate services around those packages. Now, it might not be social care services. For example, our LAC workers, our local area coordinators, would come into contact with service users who might not be social care and reference or broker alternative services around that. So we don't know what we don't know. If people don't say that they might require help through a friend or a relative, be in contact with somebody that can help, then we can't respond. A lot of the organisations that we've referenced in Appendix 1 of this report do offer help and support, telephone numbers and contacts. So they're not social care services, although some of them are indeed commissioned by social care. So there would be, or obviously we'd need to make sure that people are aware of the variety of routes, particularly if they're not or they don't want to be referred to or make social care their first point of reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. I'll now open it up to members, and Mrs Newton was first.
Sat down and I wrote down how frequently I use the computer in terms of accessing service. And I was really shocked and surprised to think how much a computer is now part of my life. I couldn't live without it, basically. I even carry it on my phone, and I've got an iPad as well. So I think perhaps we become just a bit addicted to it, but it's part of our lives. In terms of, I went through some of the alternative providers. Ability Something was one of them, and some of them just offer a one-off advice, and it's not continuing. So there's no continuity of service from some of these providers, which the people who use Care Online will need. You need more than just one. So I just wonder whether or not, saying that the amount isn't that high, whether or not the lead member would actually consider taking it back and having a rethink about this particular paper, because there are people out there, and without access to computers, access to online services, would lead a very lonely life. And it's really their engine into the outside world. So please rethink this one, and give support to these people who really have perhaps very little one-on-one contact in their lives. Thank you.
I'm not sure there was a question there to respond to, more of a statement.
My question really is to ask the lead member, would he take the paper back and have a rethink and refresh the paper and come up with perhaps a different solution? So there was a question.
Do you wish to respond to anything at this time, Richard? Okay, fine. No? Mr Colford.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I'm a substitute here this afternoon, but I read this paper and I've listened to the report and I've listened to everybody here. The thing that worries me, we say we've given a whole list of alternative providers, but then we go on to say, but they don't really provide what it is. And the thing that I would ask the lead member is, can somebody go away and come back with a list of the things that are missing? I've tried to work it out in the short time that I've had the papers. We admit there are alternative suppliers, but we admit that they're not providing everything that's being provided. So I just wonder if you couldn't go away and find out what are the missing bits. One of them is ongoing care, if I understand it correctly. So could be, before you make a decision to lose the service completely, can we find out where the holes are and see whether some other arrangements with these suppliers can fill in the holes? Because unless I've missed it, we don't know where the holes are, but we've just been told there are holes. And is there a way forward on that? Thank you.
Do any other councillors wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Well, we've heard moving speeches, and I think all of us with any sense of feeling or emotion could not fail to be moved. So your thoughts have struck home, and I congratulate you on that and the skill you've used to deploy that. But I also sit here as a member of a committee and an organisation and a body that's under enormous pressure on budgets, enormous pressures. And lots of these are what we call statutory. We have to comply by law. We don't have any halfway house to duck and dive. This is legal obligations. This service was brought about many years ago. I suppose we could fondly think back of the days of plenty, if we can remember that. But we're not there now, and there's no legal compulsion on this. There's not a legal obligation for this authority to provide that. And you've made a wonderful case why we should. But ultimately, we have to manage the budgets. And ultimately, there'll be other services where we have a legal obligation and we have to be able to fund all of that. And the pressure upon this authority within the needs area is colossal. Therefore, truthfully, I feel very saddened because your case is so compelling, but I could not support it when I know the demands are so great on our limited resource. We don't have extra monies. We're under pressure and we're losing budgets all the time, and yet we still have a legal obligation. So, Mr. Chairman, I will support the officer's recommendation on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other council wish to speak? And there is no obligation on this committee to make a recommendation. It's not requested in the report. It is for us to ask the questions and obtain more information for our officers and the lead members, and to pass on any comments we have ourselves. So we're not duty bound to vote at this moment, and it's not going to Cabinet until July in any event, and there will be a further opportunity for this committee either before or after to scrutinise either the decision being made or after being made. So really it's a question of any comments. I think the lead member has powerfully heard the comments that have been made, and also the counter offer that, you know, if we save everything, what do we cut and where do we get the money from to do the statutory services? So I think we all have extreme sympathy, but it would be useful at times if people say, well, let's keep this but cut something else. But if I could pass the lead member, Richard Blunt.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you know I go into these meetings completely with an open mind to listen to what people say. There's no point doing this if you do that. If you've written a speech of what you're going to say and you've made your mind up, then you might as well not bother attending. And I think that the comments from Betty, Mr. Kaufman, from Dan, you know, I think Dan summed it up. You know, your comments have struck home. I think the one question that is the one that I've listened to most today, which I think needs answering, and I'm going to hand over to try and seek an answer in this meeting now, or otherwise, if not in this meeting, then before Cabinet, is what is the perceived gap between what people receive now and what they might get from the other suppliers. Now, these people that we list here, AbilityNet, we know these people, Vista, we know Enrich. I've worked very closely with these people, Voluntary Action South Leicestershire. We work with these people, Age UK. We know that in there somewhere, I'd rather just presumed in there somewhere, there were the resources to take over this service in a different way, but largely, nobody likes change, I get that. But I believe that the committee are asking, is there a gap, and would we in a year's time think that actually these people were providing the service differently, but actually people felt they were just as supported to continue living independent lives? And I would like to, I don't think Nigel can answer all that now, but I'm going to challenge him to do what he can in public now, and otherwise to come back to me in private before Cabinet.
Okay, thanks. I think if we were to really summarise the nub of the perceived gap between what the organisations that are there and Care Online, is that detailed, bespoke service, the element of it, and the time that's taken up with that. Now, there is a perceived gap. We've got a range of organisations there that offer a variety of services and offers to make people, to help people get digitally active, and to help them decide on what the best software, hardware, and so on is for them. I guess what the gap is just that, you know, sort of ongoing support over a longer period of time, which we feel now we can no longer sustain in terms of the way that the current service operates. We are aware that some of those organisations are looking to develop their services, and obviously will remain should the decision be taken to decommission the service, remain in constant conversation with those organisations to look for any opportunities where, through alternative funding sources, they can develop aspects of the service which might bridge that gap. But we are where we are at the moment, and as I say, we've got a range of services. We've been very clear in the consultation that those services don't exactly represent the detailed, bespoke nature that Care Online offers. But as I've also said, we are in very, very difficult times. We know that budget pressures, has been alluded to, are immense, and we have to look at doing things differently and take that leap to look at how that develops. So we will be obviously speaking to, should the decision go ahead, with individual service users. There's 45, as we've said, that are receiving a visit, and we'll be working with those quite closely, and also contacting the people that use the follow-on support line to broker that relationship between sort of what is offered now and what is developed with the other organisations.
Thank you, Nigel. Any other members wish to say anything before I sum up? I think where we are is that we've heard very powerful testimonies being said, and I'd like to thank particularly our three speakers for coming here today, taking the time and effort to inform us about things which we may not be fully informed about, because words on paper don't tell the whole story. So thank you for that. We certainly have a commitment from our lead member working with officers to look again at where the gaps are and what might be able to be done prior to it going to Cabinet. And I think that is the power of a committee like this, that it does provide a vehicle for those facts and information to come across. And I think you've already seen from the previous agenda item that we are a council that does listen and does try and meet the needs of people where possible, being on the horns of a dilemma as we are between what we can do and what the budget is. So I think if we could just urge the officers and the lead member to take those comments away with them in producing their final report and see what can be done. No, it's going to Cabinet on the 6th of July, and we have no meeting prior to that date. So we have the option to look at it after the event, but we won't be able to look at it before the Cabinet decision. Okay. No, that's I can be flexible. You see, the power of the chairman is I can be flexible. So if you press your button again and speak when you're.
I appreciate it. I don't think the people around this table realise it's not just somebody going in and teaching people how to use a computer. That is not what Care Online is about. I think you've got no understanding of how much it helps people in society, and in some circumstances, whether people are on their own, terminally ill, with no support, not seeing anybody from 1 month to the next, the NHS is downgrading its services. The social services only help with a very few minority of people. Care Online can go in and make all the difference. It empowers people to take back the reins of their life and help themselves as best as they can using the internet. We've already heard most people. How would they cope without the internet? They get taught how to use the internet, but they get taught how to take their life back and to improve their life. Whatever quality they've got, they can improve it with Care Online. You take that away just for saving a few pounds of everybody's life, you get an awful lot of budget for social services. You've got some fantastic websites. You've got to be able to see those websites. You've got to have a computer to go on those websites. You're taking away people's lives. And I don't think you thoroughly realise how important this Care Online service is. It's not costing a great deal of money. Doesn't employ a great deal of staff, but the staff are absolutely second to none. I myself has been seriously let down by the council and the facilities they've provided. The only thing that's any good in the council is Care Online, and you're thinking of saving a few pounds and getting rid of it. Just take it to social services, keep it going, expand it. We're an aged population, and you do not realise this is people's life. This is people's lifelines you're cutting off. Those people will be more dependent on NHS, their lives will be less important. They never see anybody. They don't get out. They can't Skype people. They can't get the food. They can't get the doctor's appointment. They can't get the prescriptions. Their life ends without Care Online. You have no idea how important it is. Go and see people. These people here are the able-bodied ones. There's a lot of people that would have loved to have come to this meeting just to see how their lives are going to change. They can't get here. You know, you've no idea, and they're trying to bumble along as best they can, pick themselves up and have some sort of a life, and you're going to deny that to them for cutting £100,000. You've got the budget, change it to social services, improve it. That's what you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
Yes, just a few things to respond to that. It is a... Sorry, yes. Is that better? Is that better? Yeah. Yes. A while ago, I have gone out and visited people. I've seen people recovering from strokes. I've seen people that have not had use of their limbs in terms of the support that's given. However, I would reiterate that the purpose of Care Online is to help people become digitally active, and it you know, sort of that is important to understand. The other thing I'd say is an underlying element of what's come through the consultation is that one of the valuable parts of Care Online has been, just aside from that, the social interaction with staff because they're lonely or for whatever circumstances. Now, there are a range of organisations that aren't digitally focused that can offer that help and support in terms of befriending or stopping people being socially isolated. I think the purpose of Care Online is around helping people to become digitally engaged. That's what it was set up to do. There are other services that can then meet the needs for you know, sort of elements of social isolation.
Right, thank you for that, Nigel. Any final comments from councillors before we move on to the next agenda item? I'll just say, clearly the officers and lead member have gone away with a firm message and understanding. Could I once again thank all those people who have attended today, and particularly those that have spoken to the council. I hope, if nothing else, you feel that you have been heard today. So thank you for your time, effort and trouble in attending.
Councillors, try using your laptop without a mouse, and just let me know how far you get, because obviously, being a blind user of a computer, I don't use a mouse at all. I use other shortcut keys, and it always fascinates me that when I ask for help from a sighted person, oh, you just click the mouse. Well, we don't. So I'd just like you to have a go at that. I'm sorry, but I just had to say that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for that final comment. I think we will all go away and accept the challenge from you. I appreciate that you may not wish to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you're welcome to do so if you wish. But if we take we'll just take if we just take a 5-minute break, councillors, just to enable people to leave and to sort themselves out. All right, everybody, I think our 5 members' minutes is up. 5 minutes. So if we can now move to agenda item 12, which is pages 75 to 92, which is delayed transfers of care year-end report. Could I ask Peter Davis to report?
Thank you, Chairman. Did I have on? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and committee members. Firstly, I'd like to need to point out a correction to the report. Page 81. The final total variance box should read increase and not decrease. So thank you to Councillor Newton for pointing that error out. And getting on to the main body of the report, I'd like to start with some background detail. Chair and Scrutiny Committee will recall that on the 14th of November 2017, my director and lead member tabled a report on DTOC. And that report focused on the national requirements imposed by the NHS England as part of the Better Care Fund policy and the work undertaken to date by the County Council and the local NHS partners to reduce delayed transfers of care. This report is by way of an update and will focus on our end-of-year performance to March 2018 in relation to detox, and also it sets out in detail specific improvement actions that we've taken across the whole system and the impact on the patient journey, including the implications of the new national requirements imposed by NHS England as part of the Better Care Fund policy. But amidst all the detail and the complexity, it is absolutely vital and important to demonstrate to the chairman and to members of the Scrutiny Committee that this is a good news report about improved performance across the system, but in particular improved performance by adult social care. The key achievements are set out at paragraphs 15, 16, 17 and 18. And across LLR, detox have improved significantly during the 2017-18 financial year. In fact, there has been a reduction by 21% in delayed bed days when compared to 2016-17. And for adult social care, that improvement is even greater. A 24% reduction on delays attributable to adult social care over 2017-18 compared to the previous year, 16-17. And I draw your attention to paragraph 17. The hospital provider data shows the greatest reductions. For Leicestershire Partnership Trust, delays attributable to adult social care, a large reduction in the latter half of 2017-18 of 98% when compared to the first half of the year. The focus at LPT has been on community hospitals and non-acute wards such as Bradgate Unit, Agnes Unit, and the Mental Health Services for Older People, Evington Unit for older adults with mental health challenges. Concerted effort and input using multidisciplinary approaches by health and social care and housing and district input where appropriate can have a major impact on improving our collective detox figures and, more importantly, the patient and carer experience. So concerted action, these are patients who've been often on those wards for very long periods of time, and we have significantly reduced their delays. However, we've seen at University Hospital Leicester, UHL, where we have obviously a number of, we have the biggest challenge in terms of patients, number of patients, but with small number of days of delays. We have seen a rise this year of 24% in the last 6 months. But that has to be set in the context that for 16-17, in total at the University Hospital Leicester, we lost 7,000 days around detox, whereas in this financial year, 17-18, we lost 5,620, a reduction of 1,396 days, and an improvement, a reduction by 20%. So going back to the report sets out the detox definition, detail around that, references made to the local government and NHS 8 high impact actions, and we also set out the key improvements, actions in progress across various areas, which are listed: learning disability, mental health and older adults. We refer to expansion in the integrated discharge team, the integration of service delivery and care delivery, embedding a system across LLR, which we call Home First, supporting self-funders, and obviously improving the data, the collection of data, trying to develop a unified system of reporting delays, because you've got so many different inputs and factors going in, and getting to that single version of the truth. And we are making great progress towards that. So the future, and as the chair and members, you'll be wanting to ask, what about the future, and can we meet our revised targets? To meet the revised targets, adult social care will have to maintain our current performance, and the NHS will have to improve their performance, particularly at UHL. However, in the coming months, adult social care workers, management will work towards supporting our partners, and in particular the patients and their carers in that journey. We will be working through the Accident and Emergency Delivery Board and operationally driving these changes through the Discharge Working Group using our action plan and preparing solidly for all the challenges ahead of us, not least, of course, winter 2018-19, given that 17-18 was a difficult winter to say the least. And in addition, the devil is always in the detail. We'll be looking at the self-funder experience and how we can improve that self-funder experience at the point of discharge, given our duty to signpost and offer information and advice to self-funders as set out in the Care Act. We're also rolling out across the system in the various hospitals and on the various wards patient choice policy to inform the patient of the need to move out of the bed when they're ready and fit to leave hospital, but to support them in doing this in terms of their next destination of travel, and supporting them in line with our adult social care strategy in one that maintains them back in the community at home with our support. We also think we've got to look at the out-of-county hospital pathway, which I think needs refreshing and a greater rigour. We have made improvements, but it still constitutes around 24% of all delays. So there's more work that we need to do. And then finally, looking at the service user experience, collecting the testimony of what works and what doesn't work for our patient and their carers across the various areas that they find themselves in a hospital or in a hospital ward, whether it's at UHL, in the Bradgate unit, or out of county, in an out-of-county setting. And of course, whilst we anticipate all these challenges and working with health, we'll deliver these in partnership with our health partners, our key partners, to deliver effective discharges. So I would refer committee and chair to the report. Take any questions.
Thank you, Peter. And
sorry,
yes, again, Betty's
I need to
first.
come in straight away and I'll explain why in a minute. I should have declared an interest, because it's been a long time since I've been on this committee. I should have declared an interest. I have a daughter that works at an A&E in Leicester Royal Infirmary and a son that works at the Bradgate unit. I apologise, just thinking, so I make a declaration of interest.
Mo doesn't look stressed, so if he's not stressed, I'm not stressed. Right. Thank you, Peter. Do I have any questions? Stuns, Betty.
Just to ask, do we understand or know the reason why the NHS is actually finding it increasingly difficult to discharge patients? And do we know where the blockage points are and what we can do about them?
Well, the NHS chair, if I answer the question, and lead member, the NHS is a huge beast. So I would be answering the question with a question, which is probably not a good answer to a politician. But it's which parts. I think the biggest, we've done a lot of work around, for instance, the Evington Centre and looking at processes, agreeing partnership, face-to-face meetings, developing the partnerships, developing the trust. We've done the same at Bradgate and the outer county similarly. I think at UHL, it's just the complexity. These are, as I'm sure you'll know from your family member, these are a huge number of wards, lots of turnover of staff. So embedding a change You've got to go do that incrementally and start small, but then keep repeating the message and repeating the message to get it through. So it's about system change, but the biggest challenge within the NHS locally would be UHL. But I'd say that, you know, we've made great strides in reducing that 7,000 to 5,000 delays. It's probably nature change and the size of the beast. You know, so I suppose I think the staff are most proudest of what we've done with those patients, say at the Bradgate, where we have, or at Agnes Unit, where we had patients there for 100 plus days, and to actually move that patient on to the next stage in their journey, it's a fantastic achievement across professionals. So it's a gradient in terms of the approach and managing the change, but UHL is where we've got to go in and build up that response in a way which is very patient focused and actually very patient as well, given the scale of what they've got to manage.
Thank you, Peter. Richard?
Thank you, Chairman. Just for those members who are new to the committee, DTOC is about getting people out of hospital fast. It's DTOC is quite a nice name. We can all quite like DTOC, but actually, in simple terms, it's getting people out of hospital very early. The government set us a challenge, tied us at the ankle to the NHS, and said, together, you've got to get out of this and breathe it. And a year or so ago, it looked quite difficult. And there were some who felt that we shouldn't respond because it's not our job. We do our job well, and we should leave it to others. But in reality, is we do adult social care, and they do healthcare. And if we're not talking to each other, we're not helping the end users, are we? So I think a huge thanks goes to officers, because what they did is they've looked at every single point of where it was going wrong. For instance, in the hospitals outside of Leicestershire, they were using different systems. So actually it meant we didn't even know the figures were right or not. Well, without the impetus of having the pressure put on us, we went along with the old way. So overall, what we've done, and it's cost money and effort, huge amount of effort, is we've gone and looked at all the points in the system to try. Your question is the most relevant one, Betty, and it's very nice to have you back here. Genuinely, the NHS have got the same problem times 1,000 of what we have. But we do our bit, and we work with the NHS, and I believe it is really absolutely crucial for us to work with the NHS to try and help them get a little bit of, because we can get kicked, we can get punished. They were going to take money off us for not delivering on DTOC, even though we were doing much better than the NHS. They weren't going to take it off the NHS. We can argue about the logic of it. We were given a challenge, and we are rising to it, but it will be hard work. But I'm actually very proud to be in this position compared to a year ago.
Thank you, Richard, and could I thank the officers for the report. Could I just ask one question, and it's probably totally irrelevant, but I was reading something the other day, and I like to increase my knowledge at each meeting. I actually read that the NHS budget includes provision for them to actually build specialist accommodation for these type of people, but I'm not aware of the NHS building any specialist accommodation.
That might refer transforming care refers to transforming care.
Oh, is that where it is? So yeah. It's not out yet, but it's on the way.
There's a current programme of transforming care, but that impacts a little on this agenda, but not in the main.
Thank you for that. I said it's all a learning curve. So right, we note the contents of the report under agenda item 12, and now we move on to agenda item 13, which is on page 93 to 124. Which is the Century Theatre Colville proposed transfer to Leicestershire Traded Services, which is with Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Just by way of introduction, if you don't know the Century Theatre, it's situated in Colville on the site that used to be the colliery. And is two things. It is a museum artifact, so it's an exhibit in its own right. But it also operates as a performing arts venue and does a range of cinema showings, theatre, pantomime, and is supported by an active team of volunteers. But they're also a paid manager staff. So the purpose of this report is to advise the Cabinet, and this is framed in terms of a Cabinet report, to seek approval to the transfer of the management of the Century Theatre to Leicestershire Traded Services as part of the Corporate Resources Department, and also to deaccession the theatre from the museum's collection in order to support its future operation and sustainability as an arts venue. And the paper also seeks permission to authorise the Director of Adults and Communities to make future disposals from the museum's collection on behalf of the governing body within the thresholds that are outlined in recommendations C. Just again, just in terms of a little bit more background, on the Snibston site, planning approval for the development of that site has recently been secured, and it does include, not part of the Century Theatre, a new cafe provision to serve visitors to the country park, as well as the new colliery area. The cafe will form an extension to the theatre, so therefore bringing together the operational management of these two elements would ensure the benefit of the investment is maximised. And the proposal will help secure a sustainable operating model for the Century Theatre, which will continue to work with Century Theatre volunteers and performing arts at the Century Theatre, and give a clear focus for PACT, which is the acronym for Performing Arts support role going forward. So that's really the basis of the report. In terms of the permission to any future museums' artefacts, and the reason why we would decommission the Century Theatre as an artefact is it would give some greater freedoms in terms of developing the offer, which is principally that of an arts venue. If it wasn't operating an arts venue, it would be just a venue which would be part of an exhibit. The recommendation to authorise any further decommissionings of museums is sought within the confines of where an item has a particular public interest, in which case we'd have to come back to Cabinet as the governing body. The original purchase or cost of an article's conservation or restoration was supported by external funding. The disposal would involve a sale of some sort, or the disposal of an item would result in a significant cost to the authority. Those are the things where we would continue to come back to Cabinet because of the circumstances surrounding those. But with the Century Theatre, we are proposing that it's deaccessioned as a museum collection piece and progress as an arts venue within North West Leicestershire. Thank you.
Any questions from members?
It's not really so much as, it is sort of a question. I must admit, until I read this paper, I'd never heard of the Century Theatre at all. So I'm obviously lacking in knowledge, quite severe knowledge. I'm still trying to get my head around what it actually does. Is it just a relic that of something that was amazing years and years ago when it was up in the Lake District? Or is it actually working as a theatre? I'd just like to know that. I see that it was purchased some 20 years ago plus with a national lottery grant. Wouldn't North West Leicestershire like to have it themselves? I mean, the council, I mean, the borough. I mean, I'm not sure that it's, well, it belongs to the county, but is it being used by the whole county? I mean, I must admit, it's probably my own fault for being ignorant, but I've lived here now for over 30 years in Leicestershire, and I've never, ever heard of it, seen it, had any adverts for it, or anything. So that's really my statement.
Are you going to go first?
Richard.
Hilary, if you want a night out, come to the ballet at the Century Theatre. The Russian ballet perform there every year.
Right.
And you can go and watch the latest films, and you can go and watch the comic shows of the best in the country. Okay. And live shows, performers, music as well. Incredibly good. Just let me... Well, no, but being serious, it's both. It was built as a moving theatre to travel around after the war. Right. So therefore, it was literally set up as a theatre and move on. So the relic is a moving theatre that no longer moves. Okay. But it sits on wheels, on blocks, and technically could be put back on wheels and driven to the Lake District to put a show on. Right. That's the relic part of it. In reality, by dint of 20 years going by, it's become a place for performing arts. Okay. Now, what it needs to do is, we're not in the business of running performing arts theatres, but we are in the business of running country parks and cafes. There's already a cafe reception area at the beginning of it anyway. We're investing in our country park. It's on the same site. So actually what it becomes is it falls into Byron's portfolio from mine, okay. And it becomes a profit centre, making money out of selling coffee and cakes and drinks, also providing a social care social, and also supporting the country park. So actually it's a rare thing today. It is a win-win-win. So I'm confident. No, please go, because it is, and you'll find it busy. You'll find it busy, and you'll be rather proud of it. And it's not costing the taxpayer any money, whether it's district or county.
Could I just ask a question on that? Because it says on paragraph, wherever it is, 14, that it is costing us money, 31,500, although we hope to get that to nil. Now, what's being described is the fact that because it's next to a cafe, the cafe might make more profits. That doesn't mean the theatre itself will actually make or break even. And was it never envisaged, being a simple person? I mean, I've heard of it, but I think I've been there once in my 30 years. But when we acquired it as a moving theatre, why did we not use it as a moving theatre? Which would have seemed the point of acquiring it, to go around the county to provide those areas that haven't got a theatre or access to one shows. Now, under paragraph 22, it says that it is an historic asset which will be maintained by the council. So how much will be the maintenance costs of the theatre going forward, and what will be the MRP on those capital funds to ensure that the theatre is breaking even and is no cost to the taxpayer? So we've heard there will be no cost, but depending on what the MRP is and what the future work on the theatre might be, there could be significant ongoing revenue costs, and I see nothing in this paper that addresses that issue.
Well, I'm going to carry on, because I'm going to take Nigel's thunder. It wouldn't make commercial sense to drive it around Leicestershire or anywhere else. It makes sense to put it in one place. It makes it a valuable heritage asset, because I think it might be the only one left.
It's unique.
It is unique. It's the only one in the country. Can't have another one. We've got it. A bit like many things, it lands on our watch. It's on our watch, so we've got less money than we had before, but actually it does a job. And we have been trying to get it toward break even as fast as possible. Now, when you shut down the Discovery Centre next door and create and you do all that, you're not giving it a very good chance. When you make people drive around the back through a housing estate to get there, you're not making a very good chance. When you open the front gate and invest £250,000 in a new area and a new car park and a new country park, you've got a jolly good chance of making it make some money. So it's really taking a historical position that we arrived by default, got stuck where it was. So it really is about being a bit more commercial and saving something that we would be sorry if we lost it. But overall, we wouldn't take it on voluntarily unless we already had it. So it is, we want this to succeed, because make no mistake, and I know it's being recorded today, if this doesn't go to Trade Services and start washing its own face, it won't be something that this department would be able to continue to run at a loss going forwards. So this is a solution that is more likely to safeguard its future.
No, thank you for that, and I don't disagree. It just would have been nice to have some financial information that illustrate that that might actually be possible, because if we get a bill for £500,000 in 10 years' time to refurbish it, the MRTP on that alone will wipe out its viability, and that's what concerns me going forward. But I think, did you want to question, Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support and move the recommendations, but I'm also interested to see if Dr. Riley, the local member, has made any comments regarding this.
We have discussed this with Councillor Onion, in terms of that, and she didn't voice any particular concerns associated with the proposal.
And just on your financial viability, Chairman, I genuinely suggest, and I'm not tongue-in-cheek, that you actually contact the chairman of the relevant scrutiny body for property and ask them to make a note to look at the viability going forwards, because it's going over to their scrutiny watch, and it would be reasonable for you as chairman of this one to send over that comment to them to look at it, because you're absolutely right, it does need to succeed as a financial venture, and that will be Byron being held to account by a different scrutiny body, none of us of which will be there.
No, thank you for that, Richard. I think that was another of my question. I don't like chairing a committee that passes the buck without the information on why we should be passing the buck. So that's why I felt this committee should have had that information rather than dump it on another committee that then looks at it. But we have the recommendations under 3, A, B and C. Do I have a proposer for them? Yep, thank you. Seconder? All in favour? Okay, thank you. And we move on to agenda item 14, which is the Safeguarding Adults Board Business Plan 2018-19, which is pages 125 to 136, and is with James Fox, Safeguarding Board Business Manager.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm afraid the new independent chair of the Leicestershire and Rutland Safeguarding Adults Board, Robert Lake, couldn't make the scrutiny meeting. I'm presenting this on his behalf. You've got the report in front of you, and the purpose of this report is to present the Leicestershire and Rutland Safeguarding Adults Board's business plan for this year to this committee for some comment from this committee as they see appropriate. I guess as an overview, the Safeguarding Adults Board works to support and challenge effective multi-agency safeguarding of adults with care and support needs in the counties of Leicestershire and Rutland. The board covers both Leicestershire and Rutland. And each year produces a business plan outlining the priority areas of work for the board over that year. These priorities that you have in front of you for the plan have been brought together by the board, and the board's made up of key statutory partners, including the local authorities for Leicestershire and Rutland, the police, the clinical commissioning groups, and other health services and voluntary services are involved in the group as well. The priorities have been developed based on input over the past year from our previous business plans, progress on those, from our analysis from our annual report, and information fed in from partner agencies earlier this year. And so the Safeguarding Adults Board has the 4 priorities outlined in the paper. So prevention of safeguarding adult need, so particularly focused on building resilience and self-awareness in adults with care and support needs. There's a focus there on looking at how organisations working with adults can identify safeguarding needs or potential for safeguarding needs early and work with that. And it also includes consideration of transition from children's support services as well to adult services. Second priority around mental capacity is looking to improve the understanding of capacity to consent and the application of Mental Capacity Act across agencies. The board's done quite a bit of work on this, and partner agencies have as well for a number of years, but we found there's still some concern around confidence, I think, in applying legislation around the capacity to consent and working around capacity to consent. The third priority is around safeguarding adult thresholds, and we're looking to promote better and more consistent use of the thresholds that support access into services for safeguarding, and also for that prompt safeguarding inquiries for adults with care and support needs. And the fourth priority is engagement, and really stepping up the work of the board to ensure that, that the work of the Safeguarding Adults Board is informed by adults with care and support needs. A lot of work is done by the local authority, particularly around the Making Safeguarding Personal work, which I'm sure this committee will be well aware of. But it's looking beyond that, so the board itself and the work of the board and the priorities of the board are more informed directly by adults with care and support needs. The detailed business plans are, or more detailed business plans are appended to the report, which outlines some of the objectives, actions and timescales as part of that plan. And so I open it up to the committee, therefore, to consider the business plan priorities and provide any comments they would like on this.
James, do I have any questions from members? Hilary.
I'd just like to ask a very basic question, actually. At what age does someone become an adult?
18 is generally where it's considered.
I was at the Children's and Families meeting yesterday. I sit on that board, and we were doing a similar thing, but for children. So all I want to see is that, or ask the question is that, with children and families are okay up to 18, then they come under this policy, and that it is a clear tie-in together.
So the Safeguarding Children's Board for Leicestershire and Rutland and the Safeguarding Adults Board work very closely together. We've got some combined groups that look particularly at safeguarding effectiveness and the reviews we carry out, and they currently have a number of joint meetings so we can ensure that we're looking at issues and things are covered. That particular element around transition from support under children's services to adult services is a particular area we're looking at in our prevention priority as well in safeguarding adults.
I think it's very important, because if you've got 15 and 16 and 17 year olds and then suddenly they're 18, you're changing things over. I also noticed on the priorities that under the engagement, there's no partnership lead at the moment, so that's waiting to be appointed. So I hope that that's in the pipeline.
If we could respond to that, the partnership identified that there wouldn't be a lead officer at the board leading on that. We're linking in with some work that Leicester City Safeguarding Adults Board have done, and we're leading that within the board office that we have hosted here at Leicestershire County Council that leads that work, rather than there being a specific agency, because it ties into a lot of the work across the priorities as well, so we're ensuring that each of the priorities considers engagement within their work as well.
Thank you. It's just when you read that there's no officer lead, but you've clarified it for me. Thank you.
Heather's waving at me, so.
Thank you, James. I just wanted, in the absence of the independent chair, in my role of vice chair of the Safeguarding Adults Board, to clarify that the priorities are set predominantly by our work that comes out of our serious case reviews. So I do chair the Leicestershire and Rutland Serious Case Review subgroup, which is where we look at significant incidences that have resulted in death or significant harm, and we look at how agencies have worked together and any learning out of those reviews. And the priorities are set, these priorities particularly, I can confirm, are set around some of the learning that has come out of those reviews, that says if agencies work differently and have a better understanding of these areas, then maybe we could avoid or avert serious case reviews happening.
Right, thank you. I think we will note the contents of the plan and thank James for his report. You got away lightly there, so I'd head for the door. I'd head for the door quickly. And we're moving on to agenda item 15, which is the last one on the agenda, but by no means least, so please pay attention, which is the Provisional Performance Report for 2017-18, pages 137 to 152, and that just gave Matt time to sit down, so over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon all. Yes, so this report is a summary of performance for the Adults and Communities Department in 2017-18. Figures are classed as provisional at this stage. We've only just been collating them to provide nationally in the last few weeks, although I don't expect there to be any notable changes when the data is finally published, which will be in the autumn by NHS Digital, and we will bring a set of that data back to the committee at that point in time, along with kind of national averages and other authorities benchmarking, etc. Overall, during 2017-18, of the metrics that were given a red, amber or a green rating, 70% were classed as green, which is either meeting or surpassing the target, whilst for the remainder, the target was missed by varying degrees. These are set out in the appendix to the report. Just a few highlights really. Areas of good performance include libraries, children issues, where during the year more than 590,000 children's loans were made. That's a 2% increase on the previous year. Delayed transfers of care. The committee received a detailed report earlier this afternoon on delayed transfers of care, or DTOCs for short. Headline performance during the year includes the 24% reduction in the number of delayed days attributable to adult social care. This equates to 188 days per month in 2017, which is actually 60 days per month less than the previous year. We know from current benchmarking that the recent performance for detox in Leicestershire actually is ranked second best amongst similar shire authorities. There continues to be a high uptake of direct payments in Leicestershire, with over half of people supported to live in their own homes making use of a direct payment. And I expect that high level of performance to be probably ranked in the top 25% of authorities when we get the data back in the autumn. There are clearly areas where performance has fallen short of the target. Nationally, we know there's been a downward trend in visits to libraries, and it's probably something we've discussed in the past in this committee. Leicestershire is no different, and in 2017-18 there were 980,000 visits to libraries, which was 3% lower than the previous year. Also during last year, there were 920 permanent admissions to residential or nursing homes of people aged 65 or over. This was actually a 6% increase on the previous year, and an area where performance has previously actually still fallen short of a national average. Updated targets and milestones have been agreed for 2018-19, and performance will commence, reporting of that performance will commence later this month. So that's it as a way of a summary. We welcome any comments or questions from members.
Thank you very much, Matt.
On page 138, number 10, it's about, I just wondered, I said about the poor weather may have had an impact on the visits to libraries, but I wondered too, have you any information as to whether restricted opening hours is playing a part in this as well?
There's usually there can be any range of factors that affect sort of whether people come into a library and take books out or not. Weather is one. If you have a particularly bad winter, then people aren't going to go. But it can also, obviously, if you reduce opening hours, then they're less accessible, which is why we're looking to extend opening hours through smart libraries as a way of sort of combating some of that. But it can, and also, more and more people can access books and so forth online. They can buy Kindles, although it's worth noting that the library service offers a free download service onto any mobile device except a Kindle. Amazon are very proprietarial about who can and can't use their devices, but any other device, it's free. You can download books, magazines, newspapers. It's all there available as part of the online library service. So it can be, yes, reductions in opening hours would make an impact. What we normally find is there tends to be sort of like a plateauing out as people get used to the new pattern of opening hours. People do come back, but yeah, it could be any number of reasons really. It's very difficult to put your finger on exactly what it is.
Can I say why I'm asking that? I was a great user of the library. I used to go down from the university. It was on my route into Loughborough, and I've not set foot since the hours were restricted because they just don't suit me really. And it's interesting to know that you can download on the Kindle. That might make me step it. Or not on the Kindle, on the other ones. But see what you can do about the Kindle.
Right, in the absence of any further questions, we'll note the report and say thanks to Matt. The date of the next meeting is the 11th of September 2018 at 2 o'clock. And in the absence of any agenda items, I declare the meeting closed. And thank you all for coming.